Hey, everybody, thanks for joining me today on this KPIs podcast. Today, I am joined by Roe Miller, who is the Senior Director of Sales at Connection and a former mentor and boss of mine. Roe, thanks so much for joining me today.
Well, thanks for saying that, Kurt.
Yeah, of
And I'm
course.
really excited to be talking with you. I miss you.
I know, I miss you too. I miss you too. So, can you share a little bit about what Connection does for those who may not have heard of Connection as an organization and everything that they sell?
So in the most simplistic answer is we connect companies with productivity through their choices of IT, right? So anything IT that can help a customer do their job better, quicker, easier, more time efficiently, and probably cost effectively, that's what Connection comes in and does. Only B2B, no B2C.
I was looking at your LinkedIn again earlier today. You've kind of been with Connection, although it was something different for forever. But talk to me about how did you get into sales? How did that start?
So, I always answer this question because I get it a lot, usually at weddings. But I always answer the question that I was technically born into it because the way I define selling is connecting people with something they need, right? So when I was a big sister, that's what I did. As a daughter, as any, any role that I've ever played, even as a parent, I'm constantly connecting people with what they need. So at the core level, I've been in sales forever. But when you think about my origin story, I actually went to Westchester University, political science. I wanted to go to law school. And there was a shift in really, did I want to be sad every day? Because I thought I was really sad going into this attorney's office that I was working with. No one's ever happy when you go talk to an attorney. You're either suing or being sued. So I shifted. I asked my dad, I'm like, hey, what do you think? And he's like, go sell cars for a bit. So that's where I started. I started selling, I was a finance manager for a Ford dealer.
There is a connotation around car salespeople, and I would say beyond that, salespeople in general, because people tend to think about their experience with car salesmen and in some very specific salespeople. How have you kind of in your life tried to make people understand you're not like that typical or what people think is the typical bad car salesman and now in sales how do you instruct others about that?
So, so interestingly enough, the car dealership that I started with, they were not your ordinary car salespeople, right? We wore the same outfits. We were trained. We were trained what to say, what not to say. We were trained on, interestingly enough, the the security of the car the person was looking. So it would stop people in their tracks because we weren't saying, "Oh, come sit down, let me put this number in front of you." It was, "What are you going to do with this automobile? Who's going to be driving in it? Who are you most worried about? Who's going to help you make the decisions?" And ultimately, what are your goals around what is this going to help you do to make your life better? And I feel like that training that I got early on has kind of pulled with me my entire sales career because it's similar to what I do now. What do you need? Why do you need it? How is it going to help your life?
I was going to go right back to that. It totally fits in with that idea of what do you need, right? Instead of like, I want to sell you this thing, taking the consultative approach of like, what do you need? What are the problems you're having? And let's figure out if we can help you solve those problems. And if not,
Absolutely.
see ya. And that's fine, right? We don't need to waste each other's time. But that's so cars and now tech. How did that switch happen from the car to tech thing?
Well, Carly happened. I was, doing my thing, selling, and it was interesting for me because there weren't a whole bunch of women in finance, auto finance at the time. So I was doing really well, especially since I had that mental thought process that if like I didn't even understand no, because I'm like, wait, like I'm just trying to help you, right? So because I legitimately bought it, I was having a great time selling in the auto industry. But then I had my second child and I realized I was spending more time helping people get what they wanted, and maybe I wasn't getting what I needed. So I made a shift from auto sales into tech sales. And I actually started as a Corel. For those of you, I'm very old. For those of you that don't know, they competed with Microsoft and Adobe, Word Perfect versus Word, and Corel Draw versus Adobe Photoshop. So I started off as an underdog in the tech industry.
I like that idea because again, but people that listen to this are younger and starting in their careers. Like at some point, there is going to be a time where it comes to career versus life, and the career, how do I take my career and actually help it make my life better than it being two things that you have to choose between. And that's what you're saying about Carly is I couldn't keep doing this. I needed to shift the career to actually help me in my life and balance that thing out. That's amazing. And I think a lot of people, I'm sure you know people and I know people that still struggle with that, that don't have that all
Absolutely.
figured out.
And
So
especially, if you're leading with ultimately I'm helping people, it really, I know you people, if you're listening to me the first time, you say, "Oh, Ro, come on." It really doesn't matter what you're positioning if you're always starting with what do you need and how can I help? It doesn't matter if it's cars or IT or medical equipment,
mm,
regardless. It's going to
mhm.
all pull together and make sense. I
Yep,
wish I knew
exactly.
that when I
Yeah.
first started.
Yeah, I remember back being in the office at Connection and I took a morning because I was just struggling to get my pitch down on the phone and mapping out like why am I here, but what sets me apart from other salespeople or just what is my why? And that was probably coaching that you gave that we had in there, but it was kind of like mapping out like, okay, I want to help solve problems and get people what they need. Not necessarily everything that they want all the time, but not try to jam it down their throat, but like were you aware of this? And that's shifted that how I respond to people. And I think is so crucial for this season of selling where people are tired of having things jammed down their throats and things are minimal. It's like you actually have to be out there finding the problem and then offering a solution to help
Absolutely.
solve the problem. So you see a lot of fresh out of school people coming in, different backgrounds, not necessarily what their plan was to be in B2B tech. What is a common thread that you look for when hiring someone that could be fresh out of school or has sold before?
If anybody sits in front of me and says, Ro, my dream was to sell IT. I usually go, like really? Oh, Ro, I love the cold call. It's what I live for. Like I usually, I'm like, oh, nope, that's not good. You're probably not being true to yourself, but I'll help you. So the number one thing I'm looking for when I'm talking with folks, regardless of how much experience they may or may not have, is curiosity, right? Like I think I've probably told you that a million times. It is what has always made the good better and the better great,
Mm,
right? It's do they really care what the customer needs, what they're going to do with it, and how and when they need to do it, right? That goes through the whole sales cycle. So curiosity is number one. Number two is accountability, right? So not even can you be accountable to me. Can you be accountable to yourself, to your why, to why you're here, right? And then can you be accountable to your customer? So curiosity, accountability being, you know, not it doesn't surpass curiosity though, because I can have accountable people that if they're not curious,
mm.
it's going to be tough. And then the third thing that, that really makes the difference is coachability, right? So I have people that either have experience or don't, but everything that you deliver, any product or service, you're gonna have to learn the ins and outs of the best way to position it. So you have to kind of come into it with a little bit of an open mind and be coachable. So curious, accountable, and coachable are probably the three most crucial attributes I'm looking for.
Now, was it kind of always those three, or has that changed over the years?
That's changed.
And do you have any stories about why that's changed without throwing certain people under the bus? But usually there's an issue where you're like, oh man, this has to shift.
So if you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have told you drive.
Mm,
I need drive. I need people that are driven. I need people that wake up in the morning and they eat sales for breakfast, right? Like, and I always thought, and I always, I kind of I put my questions around drive. The problem that we have there is the drive. If your drive is different than what I think it is, like, so helping clients succeed is what I think is number one. I stole that from Mahan Khalsa. It's not something I made up.
Hmm.
Helping clients succeed. If your drive doesn't align with that, it's probably not going to work for my culture, the culture of Connexton. So connection, Exton within connection, and the leaders that work here. They're all kind of into that, like, okay, we only succeed if the customer succeeds. So drive became almost counterproductive. We were hiring
Mhm.
these driven people that really couldn't fit into the culture, and it was bad. Like, we had to change, we had to shift. The other thing that I would say is we were always looking for experience, right? Like, oh, we want people with sales experience. It's so broad. And to be quite honest with you, I want people that want to be in the people business, not people. In fact, most of the most successful folks that I have, like because you were one of those folks that I was like, oh, but most of the successful people I have came from the auto industry. They came from the restaurant industry. They came from, folks that were working, they were teachers,
Yeah.
right? And now they're coaches. So I hope that helps. So yes, it
Yeah.
shifted, and it shifted really from drive and experience to curiosity, accountability, and coachability.
Yeah, and I would say in that, like, I know there's been a big shift in that, but you can't really teach people to be curious.
Yeah.
It's an innate thing that they want to know more. Maybe something clicks at some point. They watch something or they watch that scene from Ted Lasso about being curious, and it's like I should be more curious, and you can do it. But it's a thing. It's really hard to train and coach somebody that. But training them to sell things, training them on all of the different IT stuff and the software, you can do that,
Oh
right? That
yeah.
exists.
But
It's the
if you're not curious of what they're going to do with it, the
right.
customer's going to read right through it.
Yeah.
And they're going to say, we're putting you in the quote bucket. And you know what that means. You're going to just be a quoting machine. You become successful when that customer goes, wow, Kurt thought of something I hadn't thought of.
Mhm. I remember, and to speak highly of you and Jim at Connection was uh, take copious notes, be curious, and even if you don't know what those notes mean, write them down and celebrate. Like, get off the call and be like, I don't know what that person just told me, but here's all my notes. And then having somebody that knows a little bit more, oh, they meant this and this, and tying it all together. But just being curious and getting all of that information, even if you don't know what to do with it, is the huge setup point. And it's still
Absolutely.
true today, where I'll have a call with somebody, people like, how do you think that went? I was like, I got way more information about these people and these people connected to it than I did when I started. I don't know that we have a sale anywhere near, but I know way more information than I walked in with. And that's the
Time,
goal, if that's the goal.
time and information should always be your goal in sales. I need more time with you, and I need more information from you.
When I was at Connection, right, we're pounding the phones, 50 to 60 calls on a good day. What is it? And this is some of what you just talked about it, but what is it that makes some people take to those 50 to 60 cold calls a day and crush it, and others just burn out fast?
You said that you wanted me to be honest, right?
Mhm.
Uh, you know, Perspiration, right? People that are not afraid to perspire, people are not afraid to try, they're curious, they're interested, but there's such an element of luck that you got the right person on the right day. And in the way, if you follow a process of helping the client succeed, luck comes more often than you think. However, you got to get somebody to listen to you. And that dialing and dialing and dialing, there's an element of luck to it. The other part of it is having really strong peers that you mentioned, right? That are there to help you on the unlucky days where you have,
Yes.
just endless amounts of, I'm not interested. I have someone. No, thank you. Thank you. But we don't really run into the rude folks as much as we used to. Um, but it's really just getting somebody to talk to you. And a lot of that is perseverance with
Mhm.
some luck.
So I left Connection in that like very first full week of COVID. Can we remember back that far? It was so bumpy, new. No one in the world had any clue what was going on, how long it was going to last. But that starting at Connection was I was next to cube mates. And with that cold call rejection thing that was like, hey, that didn't sound like a good one, like I could lean on them for coaching. I remember sitting next to Tyler Meckes and he would look at me and go like this, I need you slow down your pitch, slow down your cycle. How and did the team Connection and the managers have to adjust to work from home while not having access to their cube mates, which I just remember was so encouraging and helpful? How did you guys adapt to kind of fill that
Now,
space?
it's interesting because we've adapted to it, but it's never been the same. So now the things that we've put in place where, Exton, we are a highly communicative group. So tripled our all on boards where we would have one a week. Now we have three, right? The team huddle goes from one huddle a week to three huddles a week. This is all really great for exchange of information, but it really didn't help with the chamber of prospects where you guys could all get into a room and kind of put $50 up on the thing. We're going to be, the first person that gets all of that went away, right? And we suffered for sure. And what we developed, which I think we've always had a mentor system, but now the mentoring is crucial. And then we also created what we call buddies. I know it sounds nuts, but they'll call together, right? They'll be like, okay, I'm going to do my power hour at this time for this 15 minutes. You're going to listen to me. I'm going to listen to you. And we've allowed it to be organic where the mentors we kind of assign, but
Right.
the call buddies, we just let people choose. And as we come back, like we've been back in the office now, I come back in 3 days a week. Account managers, presidential and under come back 2 days a week. Still tough. It's never gotten back to that, you know. But I can't say it's all been bad because people are really, really good at home too.
One of my things is in this work from home and less stuff, even if you're 2 days a week, 3 days a week, like what advice do you have for people to become known and kind of grow their platform and career?
So, regardless of where you're sitting, your brand is that's what you need, right? Your brand. And it's all in, are you going to, you're going to have a hybrid brand creation, right? You need as the individual to say, okay, these are the things I want to do. And I'm going to need to do this both virtually as well as in person. Now, the company, I think, has a responsibility to help with that, right? So the account manager has their coach. They also have their sales manager and their sales director. And we, as you know, we do stay sessions. I think you remember those where I don't want you to leave. So I'm going to talk to you and make you, love me so you don't leave me. But in those stay sessions, my job is to find out what you want to do, right? And then help guide you in that branding. So it's probably as far as the getting your name out there, um, think about how you did it. Like when you left, people knew who you were, right? It's going to happen for Kurt no matter where he sits. So it's the folks that maybe are a little more timid, aren't, able to put themselves out there. They were the same in the office too. So that's kind of my job is to say, okay, what do you want to be doing and how can I help you brand it?
What's some advice that you would give to your younger self now that you are where you are and been in tech sales for forever? What's advice you'd give to your younger self to kind of set yourself up for success?
Ask more questions.
Hmm.
When you get into a position of leadership, you fall into this trap where you think you need to know more than the people that you're leading. And when my career in leadership turned around, it's when I realized they know way more than me. They're talking to the customer every day. My job is to ask more questions, right? And my word for the year, I pick, as you know, one word every year was awe. AWE. And what else? And
Mhm.
I live it every day because it is what I would have told my younger self. Coach more, talk less, ask more questions.
That's all the questions I had. Is there anything else that you wanted to share? Nuggets of wisdom. I know you had a lot of them when we worked together.
I tell folks that are coming in, regardless of how long they've been in sales, I usually ask them, what is your intent? Any new folks coming into sales, you'll roll your eyes, but a customer knows your intent. They can feel it. Don't make them guess. Lead with your intent, right? My intent is to get you your stuff before you leave for the day. Whatever you decide your intent is, lead with it. Because if you don't, we're in sales, and back to the beginning of the conversation, people will assign you an intent if you don't tell them what yours is.
Mm, that's really good.
Well, I had so much fun today.
This was great. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on, taking time. Follow Ro on LinkedIn. She's out there doing great stuff. Follow Connection as well. They can help you with whatever you need. But thanks so much, Ro. This has been amazing.
Thank you.